Hello, my wonderful BookTube friends. I hope everyone's been having a great holiday season and that you have been getting some time to read. I'm going to be throwing a video out here today just talking about my favorite reads of 2023 by genre. So I hope that after the video you will leave in your comments what your favorite reads of 2023 were. Let me know if you think we might have some similar tastes and some things you think I might want to put on my 2024 TBR. I cannot believe another year is passed us by. It has been a crazy one for me, and I suspect for a lot of you. So let's all just continue to read together and be there for each other in this bookish community next year. So I'm going to start with nonfiction, and of course I am going to be finishing up on December 31st a read through of the Bible. Of course, that is my favorite nonfiction book, so I have to mention it. But the next one is thanks to my friend Dia, and I will have to thank her when we get to the fantasy I read in 2023 as well. But this one is The Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And I said this one, wrapped this book up earlier in the year, but if you don't know much about Anne Morrow Lindbergh, don't research her as an author until after you have read this book. Go in blind to her. This is a beautiful book about womanhood, motherhood, being a wife, going through different phases of your life. And that's not necessarily what I've described it, something that would normally just be reaching out and grabbing me. But the way she does it is so beautiful in her prose, and the way she compares the life we're living to the sea and how we experience life to the sea. And it was just lovely. I loved it. Another nonfiction that I absolutely loved was A Girl and Five Brave Horses, and this is by Sonora Carver. Sonora Webster Carver. I said it backwards. And if you were a little girl in the 1990s like I was, you probably saw Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, about a young girl who learns to dive horses off of a high tower. And there's a little bit of a romance in there, and she also becomes blind and then dives the horses from the tower. Well, this is her true story. Of course, a lot of her story was Disneyfied by Disney when they made it. The romance wasn't quite as intense. The man who ran the show that hired her as a diving girl, Dr. Carver, he was even more intense than they had him in the book. But I just loved her. She loved her sister. She loved her husband, Al. She loved those horses and just how brave she was and how she overcame. Okay, we're gonna go on for classics next. And Courtney Reeds and she was really the person that helped me get into Dostoevsky. I'd been wanting to read Crime and Punishment for a while. I read Crime and Punishment with her at the very beginning of 2023. January and February, we take these slow, and it was so wonderful. And Crime and Punishment is about a man who has done something absolutely terrible. I don't want to spoil the story, and how he psychologically is dealing with that, and how he's responding to other people who don't know what he's done. And there's some side characters, a family that kind of gets involved with him, and it's just so deep psychologically, and it deals with ideas of, in Russia and that time of communism starting to come in, of religion, and just so much. And also with Courtney, I read The Brothers Karamazov, and this just takes the psychological levels even deeper. It deals with brothers, and the brothers in some way are all of us and how we might deal. There's a terrible father situation in the story. If I had to choose between the books, I'm not really sure. I think just because I have a little bit more nostalgia for it because it's my first, I might say I like Crime and Punishment a little bit better, but I don't know. I think maybe over time I might decide I love Brothers Karamazov even more. They were both so good. All right, and I did a reread of Nicholas Nickleby with Dia from Novel Idea, and actually beautiful Minutia Tiffany, she started with us, and so I got some good feedback from her too, but she wasn't able to continue. And we did this the whole month of October for Victober, and it was a reread for me, but I'd forgotten almost everything except the way it made me feel. And the way it made me feel was so good the first time I read it that I knew I was going to love it again. But now I'm remembering all the details and reading it as an adult, because I was in high school the first time I read it, I'm just telling you guys, this is top tier for me with Dickens. It is such a good book. And Nicholas and his sister and their moral character and their moral fiber, and like any other Dickens, we've got some really bad guys, and just how they deal with it, and it's beautiful. And there's a lot of heartache, like a lot of Dickens, but please, if you haven't read Nicholas Nickleby, you need to. I also reread A Tale of Two Cities. This was with Courtney, and from Courtney Reads, and I think it's still my favorite Dickens. Although it's tying almost with Nicholas Nickleby now. I do love this was a historical fiction when I was reading. We're dealing with the time when the royal aristocracy in France, they're going down, and we have the story between London and Paris and what's going on, and we have family stories, and we have love and greater sacrifice as a part of the story. And if you haven't read A Tale of Two Cities, it is a bit violent. I will not lie to you. This is the French Revolution, but it is heart-achingly beautiful, like all of Dickens. So going into Daphne du Maurier, I read with my beautiful friend Chrissy from Chrissy's Purple Library. We read Jamaica Inn together, and what I liked about this story, so this girl goes to an inn, her mother has died, she goes to find her aunt, and her uncle by marriage is not a good guy. Something very sketchy is going on here. It was so deliciously creepy. I loved the creepiness vibe, and it didn't quite go into horror, but it hugged the line enough that I will say I like Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier better than Jamaica Inn, because it almost went to horror sometimes, and there were some images I'd rather not have had in my head, but it doesn't cross the line to horror for me. So I liked it. It was really a good, mysterious read for me. And it was so fun to read with Chrissy. The other thing, and this was a reread, and I hadn't read it that long ago, that's a classic, is The Blue Castle by, as you guys know, I could start an L.M. Montgomery fan club. The Blue Castle is my favorite romance, hands down, of all time now. I just love it. And the way it makes me feel, we've got a girl who is not really a girl, she's like 28 years old, has not been able to really live, and she finds out some news that makes her decide that she's going to change the way she's living her life, and she goes and helps someone in need and gets closer to someone in this way, and it starts out as a friendship, and they depend on each other just for emotional support, and it just becomes this very slow burn romance with some surprise twists at the end. I love it so much. All right, fantasy. Thank you, Dia. Thank you so much for introducing me to Dragonsong, which is my favorite fantasy of the year. I love the sequel, Dragon Singer, but you have a girl who, she has a gift and her family does not want to acknowledge how gifted she is. And so she goes out on her own, and she finds some fire lizards, and they become her friends, and there are other people that begin to support her, and it was such a beautiful fantasy. The fire lizards and the dragon, and this world is, it's just as much sci-fi as fantasy, to be honest with you. All right, and then the next book I've got on my fantasy is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is just a great, fun YA fantasy. I enjoyed it so much. I hope that you try it sometime. I really enjoyed how The romance developed. The fantastical elements of the books in this book were what really hooked me at first. I really enjoyed that. So we do have a girl in a situation where she's a librarian in a magical situation, and she's very afraid of wizards, and then a wizard ends up having to take her. She's being suspected of something, and a relationship develops. It's very intriguing. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. And this, I don't want to say too much about it because I feel like this is one of those books that just uncovering the different layers, peeling them back, I felt like was such a beautiful story. We have, again, a musician as our protagonist, and just what he's dealing with emotionally. It's a coming back home story, really. And his music and what his music takes from him and what it also gives. Give it a try. I don't want to spoil it. All right, so middle grade, y'all know I'm a middle grade girl. We read the whole Percy Jackson series as a family, including the newest one, and the Greek mythology, the fun, the way Percy sounds like a real kid and he's narrating the story. I just really enjoyed it, and it was a family experience. So Rick Riordin, give it a shot. And next, Counting by Sevens. I've talked about this book several times. This is by Holly Goldberg Sloan. This is a book about a young girl who has experienced a horrific tragedy. She is a genius. She's so smart. She deals with things by counting by sevens, and she has a found family situation. People rally around her, and she makes everyone she touches life better. This was a beautiful story. Give it a shot. All right, Cozy Mysteries is what I'm going to end on. Cozy Mysteries saved me sanity-wise this year. That's how I dealt with a lot of stress. And so I discovered the Seaside Cafe Mysteries by Bree Baker. This is a Julie Ann Lindsey pen name, and I feel like Julie Ann Lindsey is a very good person as far as supporting her fans. Like, I just put something on my Instagram saying that I loved her books, and she wrote just the most thoughtful reply. But the Seaside Cafe Mysteries deals with just the most optimistic main character. She has a cafe, you have the cozy tea cafe and the sheriff and her relationship. I just love it. And I love the mysteries. So these are my favorite books of 2023. I want to hear what yours are. Leave them in the comments and read a lot in 2024. Bye-bye.